Today's video is about the disappearance of Daniel Sheppard, a 19-year-old man from South Australia who disappeared in suspicious circumstances in the early morning on January 1st, 1995. Daniel and Michael were fraternal twins, meaning they were not identical. They grew up in West Lakes and spent their afternoons and weekends fishing, swimming in the lake, and riding their bikes and catching lizards. They loved football and regularly went to Alberton Oval to barrack for Port Adelaide. The boys had 5 sisters, but the girls were so much older that they'd already left home by the time the twins were born. Daniel Sheppard was described as fun, hard-working young man. He was a jokester and a harmless larrikin. He was working as a powder coater at the time. He loved heavy metal and was into Pearl Jam and Silverchair. Daniel did not know how to drive, so he often relied on public transport to get around. On the 31st of December, 1994, Daniel was celebrating New Year's Eve with his brother and friends at Lenny's Tavern in Glenelg. We all met at a friend's place at Cheltenham, around 6 or 7 o'clock. We had a couple of drinks and caught the train and then the tram to Glenelg, Michael recalls. Glenelg is a bayside town lined by Glenelg Beach. The town is known locally for its laid-back atmosphere with the pubs and arcades. They were in a group of 8 friends when they kicked off the festivities at a nightclub called Lenny's, but after midnight they went their separate ways. Daniel went with one of his friends and his friend's girlfriend. Later that night, Daniel caught a tram into the city to continue celebrating at Hindley Street in Adelaide. In the early hours of New Year's Day, 1995, the 19-year-old walked alone to the Adelaide railway station and boarded a 4:13 a.m. train to Outer Harbour to go home. There were about 30 other commuters on the train, including 3 females he knew from school. On the train, Daniel told 2 of the girls, "I'm all partied out. I'm going home to crash." Daniel was described as being moderately intoxicated, but still in control of his faculties. At 4:35 a.m, Daniel got off the train at Port Adelaide train station and was last seen on the southern pedestrian ramp walking towards Baines Place. The walk should have taken him about 10 minutes, though Google Maps says 20 minutes, but the landscape may have changed in the last 29 years. Michael remembers when he first realised his brother's head never hit that pillow. It was the next day after we'd been out, he says. I'd come home and Daniel wasn't at home. I thought he must be back with our other mates in Cheltenham. Michael phoned them to make sure. I said, "Where's Daniel?" They said, "We don't know, he went home." Right away, Michael and his mum didn't like the sound of it. It just wasn't like Daniel. We started to ring around other people, and we thought, this isn't right. Once they'd exhausted all of Daniel's friends, Patricia Sheppard reported her son missing. It was a terrible time. Everyone was crying. It was woeful. It was awful, Michael recalls. My gut feeling, it wasn't good. Because you just don't believe someone's gonna disappear and then bob up later. The police didn't like the look of it either, and began extensive searches in the area, from Port Adelaide railway station to the Sheppard's home in West Lakes. They also combed the riverbank to look for any sign of the missing teen. Police divers were used to search the vast areas of the Port River, lead detective May says. The morning after Daniel's disappearance, a woman called the police to report a possible abduction on her street the night before. Carol had awoken in the early hours to attend to her sick daughter. She would never forget the commotion on Jane Flaxman Court that morning at around 4:45 a.m., which would match up with the time that Daniel would be walking around there. Carol said, "I'd heard someone screaming along the lines of, 'I don't need a lift,' and 'fuck off, fuck off.' It sounded distressed. But then there was nothing but a bit of muffled noise." Alarmed, Carol went outside and sat on a stool where she had a view of the street and the large square-shaped car, which was similar to a Holden Statesman or a Ford Falcon. She was surprised to see one man in the driver's seat with nobody in the front passenger seat. "I thought it was odd. Then I saw the car had no lights on and thought, that's weird. Why haven't they got their lights on?" she said. All of this happened within a minute, and it just didn't feel right. I just couldn't process it, and I went to my husband and said, "Something really weird just happened in our street." He reminded me that it's New Year's Day and everyone's drunk, and people are doing stupid things. But something just didn't sit right, and I rang the Port Adelaide police station after I got up around mid-morning. Carol contacted the police again when Daniel was declared missing and received a call back from a detective. She said they spoke to me over the phone, but they never came and saw me, and never came and saw where I was saying these things happened. 3 weeks after Daniel disappeared, police tried a new approach. They asked Daniel's brother Michael to do a reenactment. Michael said, "I put on a wig, I went down to Port Adelaide station and they filmed me coming off the train." The reenactment of Daniel's last moments was shown on TV in a bid to extract more information from the public. The public did come forward with more information, and the police followed up every lead, tip-off, and rumour. There was every theory you could imagine, and they've all been investigated to the nth degree, and they've come to nothing, said lead detective May. Among those theories was that Daniel had disturbed a group of skinheads who were breaking into the local rugby club. That theory was investigated, but police could find no substance to it. Of course, the police had to consider the possibility that Daniel had simply had an accident. It's possible, but you think if he'd gone missing, he would have been found somewhere, May says. If he'd fallen into the Port River, or fallen over somewhere, you'd think he'd turn up. I think it's unlikely, he said. We'd have found him by now, Michael says. At least we could accept that. One piece of information that came through to Crime Stoppers was that Daniel had a drug debt, May says. But that wasn't consistent with his lifestyle. He seemed to be a social cannabis user, but there was no indication he was into hard drugs, so I doubt that's the case. Police were also told that a man from Port Adelaide area, after consuming an intoxicating mix of cannabis, cocaine and amphetamines, allegedly implied that he had been involved in Daniel's disappearance. He was a suspected drug dealer, and there was a suggestion that Daniel was supposedly buried in his backyard, under concrete. Police searched the area using ground-penetrating radar. They found that old asbestos was buried there, which suggested that the ground had not been disturbed for some time. There have been a number of those types of scenarios, but they've all been discounted. Police even investigated the bizarre claim that Daniel was murdered by an occult group and other suggestions he was kidnapped by sex offenders. Both tip-offs led to dead ends. They've been investigated as much as they can, but they've led to nothing, lead detective May said. In the early 2000s, Carol, the woman who heard Daniel's possible abduction, received a phone call out of the blue from detectives. They wanted her to recount her story. I remember him saying he'd been so caught up in the Snowtown case that this had taken a back seat, Carol said. I personally believe he walked from Port Adelaide Station up Baines Road and then either along Old Port Road or along Hero Way when he was abducted while heading home. I believe Carol witnessed Daniel's abduction, who would have only been a few hundred meters from his home when he was taken. Daniel has never been seen again. Police believe his life was taken. A reward of up to $200,000 remains on offer to anyone who provides information that leads to a conviction in this case and/or the recovery of the victim's remains. I believe that Daniel's case is solvable, and I think it will come down to an old friend or a partner of the person that was involved, like Scott Johnson's case. Maybe what happened was an accident, a prank gone wrong, or an honest mistake. I can't imagine the amount of stress that holding on to the knowledge of what happened to Daniel would feel like. I understand that it's scary to talk and to tell the police what you know, but they have resources to protect you. Hopefully someone comes forward with the information needed to crack Daniel's case, so the Sheppard family can finally lay him to rest, even if it's just mentally, because there's always hope in the back of your mind that they're still alive somewhere. Don't forget, a reward of up to $200,000 is up for grabs, even just for leading police to his remains. Daniel would be 48 this year. He would be an uncle, and possibly a father himself if he was still alive. Daniel's mother, Patricia, passed away peacefully on the 28th of June, 2023. She was 91. Sadly, without ever knowing what happened to her son. I have no doubt they are together now. My deepest sympathies go to the Sheppard family. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe. If you have any information about Daniel's case or any missing persons in your area, please call Crime Stoppers on 1-800-333-000 or go online at crimestoppers.com.au or search your local agencies. Thank you.